Shalom, welcome to Rob on the Rock. I'm Rob Vanoff. Here we are, day 31 of March through Mishlei. I hope you've enjoyed this journey. I certainly have. It's been very edifying for me. Today, of course, we're looking at Proverbs 31. And maybe many of you know that the book of Proverbs ends starting with verse 10 of chapter 31 and what we call an acrostic poem. And what you'll see here, I'll zoom in. This is the Aleppo Codex, the last page of Proverbs. It starts with that little red dash there for the beginning of the chapter. But if we go down, we see there's this space. And then it begins, Eshet Chayil mi himtza, a noble woman who will find. And the very next page of the Aleppo Codex here is the book of Ruth. And Ruth is called an Eshet Chayil. And of course, Ruth is the great-great-great-grandmother of King David and King Solomon, of course. And Solomon, of course, is these are the Mishlei of Shlomo, the Proverbs of Solomon. So we notice that the first word of the acrostic begins with an aleph, of course. Eshet Chayil, a wife of valor, or a woman of valor who will find. But let's just look at the acrostic. So you see how it begins here at the lower right corner. Notice the scribe wanted to preserve the acrostic in the visual display of the text on the page. So Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey. Do you see that? So in the right column, A is for Eshet, Batach, Ba, Lev Bala, the heart of her husband trusts in her. So Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey. And then, of course, we get to the end of that page. We have to zoom, or that column rather, we have to zoom out here, move over to the upper left column and continue. And we'll just follow it down. Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yod, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samek, Ayin, Pei, Tzadi, there's a tzadi there. It's a little faded, but you can see it. Tzadi, Kuf, Resh, Shin, and finally the letter Tav. So if I zoom out here, you can see again the last of the book of Mishlei is an acrostic poem. It's one line for each letter of the Hebrew alphabet, starting with Aleph down here, all the way to Tav. Isn't that lovely? And so what we're going to look at, though, here today is the lines for Pei and Tzadi. So we're going to do two lines here to wrap up our march through Mishlei. We're going to do the Pei line here and the Tzadi. And that's 26, lines 26 and 27, or verses 26 and 27. And so go ahead and have your Bible open if you like. It begins Piha. Piha. Well, Pe is the word for mouth. It's the name of the letter Pe also, but Piha means her Pe, her mouth. Piha pratcha v'chochma. Her mouth opens with wisdom. Pratcha technically is what we call the perfect, so it's a past tense. Her mouth has opened with wisdom. And then it continues here in the B line. V'torat chesed al leshona. Torat chesed, and a Torah of loving kindness, or a Torah of faithfulness is on her tongue. So we have, the emphasis here is on her speech, that she opens her mouth with wisdom, and the Torah or instruction in chesed, in loving kindness, in covenant faithfulness, is on her tongue. That means it's quick. She's quick to give an answer for the hope that is in her. And then the tzadi line, Sophia, that she watches. Halichot beitach, she watches over the goings on of her house. Now we'll see the circle here. Halichot, it's spelled with a yod in the main text, but Aharon ben Asher, the Masorete, says that we need to actually the spelling is Hey Lamed Yod Kaf Vav Tav Halichot, and that this is the Lamed and the Hey, the Yod and the Lamed are metathesized here. They're backwards. And then the final line there, Velechem atzlut lo tochel. Velechem atzlut lo tochel. Maybe you remember the word lechem. Lechem means bread, bread of idleness. Atzlut, the atzel is the lazy person. Atzlut is the noun form. It's like an abstract noun meaning laziness or idleness. Velechem atzlut, the bread of idleness. Lo, remember lo means not. Tochel, she will not eat. She will not eat bread of laziness or idleness. Okay, what we're going to do here, I'm going to have this there, and we're going to bring in our drafting board here and talk about some of the vocab. So what we saw is the beginning, it says piha. So it's pei, yod, hey, like this. Piha. And that means her mouth. Her mouth. Parcha, like this. That's from the root pei, tav, chet, which means to open. But parcha is the feminine, what we call third person feminine singular. It means she opened. And then she opened her mouth, with something. Chochma. Piha, patcha, vechochma. We've seen the word wisdom before. Let's just double check my vocalization here because I'm going by memory. Piha, patcha, vechochma. Nice. And then the next line, v'torat chesed al leshona. Let's now write that line here. So remember, this is all for the verse featuring the letter pei in the acrostic. So kind of draw a big pei there. It's not the greatest pei, but it'll do. So the B line is ve. That's and. Torah is our noun normally. So we would say Torah and Torah. But because it's in what we call construct, feminine construct, it becomes Torat, like this. And the kamet softens to a patach. The Torat chesed. Chesed. Chesed means loving kindness. A Torah of kindness, al, is upon. Upon what? Normally it would be lashon, like this, lashon, al lashon. But because we're going to say her tongue, it changes. We lose the nun sofit and we say lashona, like this. And then that first vowel reduces. Al leshona. Piha patcha vechochma. V'torat chesed al leshona. Torah of loving kindness upon her tongue. Now we're going to look at this next verse where it says Sophia halichot beta. Now I'm going to modify the way I write it from here to match the instruction given here, where it's Hey Lamed Yod Kaf Vav Tav, as Aharon ben Asher, the scribe, tells us. But I'm going to retain the vowel points that we have here. Let's see if we can do this from memory now. So I'm going to scroll up and we'll just continue on for our tzadi. Make it a little big there. Sophia, like that. Sophia, and then remember I'm adopting the halichot like this. Halichot beta, like this. Mapik. In the same way that we had leshona, right? And we had this kamatz hey with the mapik at the end. We had that here, and we have it here too. So her tongue, her house. Sophia halichut beta. So Tzofe would be like this. Tzofe would be he watches. Tzofa, she watches. But when we have the Sophia, it's she. It's a special form of she watches. Sophia. Al halichut bita. Let's just double check my vocalization here. Sophia halichut bita velechem atzlut lo tochel. Velechem atzlut lo tochel. So here we have another vav, ve for the B line, ve lechem, like this, mem sofit. So we have two seglets here. Oops, didn't need that. Two seglets. We had chesed above here. We have chesed, that's a seglet, means it's two, it's got the two segles in a row, chesed, and the accent's on the first syllable. Same with lechem. Lechem is a seglet. Lechem, and lechem of what? Lechem of atzlut. Atzlut. Bread of laziness. And then we have, what about it? Lo, lamed, aleph, lo, tochel. Lo, tochel. She will not eat. Let's just double check my vowel points here. I want to make sure I got it right. I think the only thing I missed here is, of course, the ayin under atzlut is not a kamatz. It's a patach like that. There we go. So let's go back through here and read the whole 2 verses for Pei and Sadi in our acrostic poem. Piha patcha vechochma. Her mouth she has opened with wisdom. Ve'torat chesed al leshona. An instruction of faithfulness or kindness is on her tongue. Sophia halichot betach. She watches over the halichot, the administration or the goings on of her house, betach. Velechem atzlut lo tochel. And the bread of idleness, bread of laziness, she will not eat. So that means there is such thing as a bread of laziness. It's a temptation, lo tochel, but she will not eat it. So notice these things have to do with her mouth, right? It's she opens her mouth, her pei, that's for the letter pei. Al lishona, her tongue, lashon, and then has to do with eating, lo tochel. Of course, lechem atzlut is a metaphor. It's not talking about bread. Lechem atzlut means to take delight in things that are against wisdom. She doesn't take delight in foolishness. She won't enjoy foolishness. Rather, she enjoys wisdom. And so this brings us to this curious word here, Sophia. I'm going to zoom in on it like this. And I can circle it with a different color here, or square it off. Sophia. This is very curious because it looks, it sounds like the Greek word Sophia. Which is the word for wisdom. So it would be, if we were to put that in like this. If you think of philosophy, right? So in Greek, I'll write it in English, but like philo, Sophia, It's philos is love, Sophia is wisdom. So some scholars have wondered, they've asked the question, is Solomon in deliberately doing what we call a bilingual pun, or a deliberate play on words? That is, he's using a word in Hebrew, Sophia. It's not used anywhere else in the Bible, Sophia. And in Hebrew, it has a meaning. She watches over. She is diligent over, or she oversees, something like that. Like oversight, not like the mistake oversight, but oversight as like governing. She is attending to. She is showing vigilance for, that kind of oversight. That it could be a deliberate hint at the Greek word, Sophia, which means wisdom. If so, this is a reflection of Solomon's international knowledge. We know that there was trade in Solomon's day with the Phoenicians who were up north, and the Phoenicians were people who traveled the Mediterranean. So this would be a very early attestation. Now, some might say, "Oh, well, if this is a wordplay on the Greek word Sophia, then the Proverbs, particularly this one, must be written into the Hellenistic era." And that does not need to be the case, because the Greek language existed, in the time of King Solomon. It was not in the form of classical Greek, but it was there was Mycenaean Greek. There were earlier forms of Greek, and there's no reason why Sophia, the word wisdom here, was known by Solomon as a parallel or as a translation of the Hebrew word, what we have up above here, which is chokhmah. So we just connect these two. She has opened her mouth with wisdom. Torah of loving kindness is on her tongue. Sophia, halichot beita. Now, none of this can be proven. It might not be an intentional wordplay at all, or it could be intentional. If it is intentional, then I think this reflects knowledge of international languages, of languages other than Hebrew, and that is a fun hint at wisdom. Again, like we saw in the verse for letter Pei, chokhmah, repeated again, but in disguise. Sophia halichot beita, and with that play, we would read it something like wisdom is the governance of her house, or something like that, which makes sense because piha patcha v'chokhmah, she has opened her mouth with wisdom. In any case, this is a wonderful image of this Eshet Chayil poem, which is a lovely acrostic poem that husbands can read in an English translation, or in Hebrew, if you know Hebrew, to your wife on an Arab Shabbat, for example. And it is a beautiful picture of godly values. So this concludes March through Mishlei. I'll leave you with this image of the beautiful Aleppo Codex here, wrapping up. And like I said, if you were to turn the page here in the Aleppo Codex, the very next page begins the book of Ruth, which is so fitting because Eshet Chayil, of course, is the beginning of this acrostic poem, and Boaz calls Ruth an Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor, a woman of honor, a woman of strength. So thank you all for joining me in this march through Mishlei. I hope it's been edifying and instructive and even a little entertaining. Shalom.